Hey guys, how's it going? It's Krista here. It has been a minute since I last saw you, and I hope that everyone is doing well, everyone's happy and healthy. And I'm going to start today by creating a background out of some Yupo paper. This Yupo paper I picked up at my local craft store. This is 86-pound Yupo paper from Tim Holtz. And where I'm going with this is I want to create a background with a lot of white space. My goal here is I want to use an entire background for a card front, creating a lot of impact, really simply using the minimal supplies that I can. And it's always fun to buy new products and new dyes, but sometimes it's fun to create something new out of things that you already have. So I'll take out one sheet of Yupo paper, and I'm going to work with it this way today. I found that's easiest to create the white space that I'm looking for. And I also have some alcohol blending solution, a blower, as well as a variety of alcohol inks. And you can use whatever alcohol inks you have. Today I'm using Monsoon, Gumball. Actually, I'm going to trade that out for Fiesta. And Boysenberry, a silver alloy, and Stream. And to start off, I'm going to take some alcohol blending solution just to ensure that I have really good flow right from the get-go. And I'm just placing a drop in the middle and then a drop to either side. I'll start off first with my Fiesta. And I'm going to drop that right in the middle, just a couple drops. I'll then come in with my blower and move that around. And I really like this Stream color, so I'm going to come in and drop a little bit of Stream on either side into the pools of blending solution that I placed down first. And it's probably pretty hard to see the pools, but when you're doing this in person, it does make a difference of how easily the alcohol solution moves around. And I'm just working to blow that alcohol ink into the other color as well as away from the other color, just to get a little bit of variety in the mixing of the colors. I'll go ahead and add another drop of blending solution just kind of to the edge of that Stream color. And I'll come in with Boysenberry, and you can take this as far as you want. You could stop right here if you want. That's the great thing about alcohol inks, is you can stop at any point, really. And I'll just repeat by coming in with that blower just to move it around. And you want to make sure that you are using the proper tool, you're not using a straw and inhaling the fumes from your alcohol inks. And I'll come in with this Monsoon. I'm just going to add it, kind of one right here and one right here, and I'll add it without the blending solution, just so you can see the difference in how the alcohol inks move. Notice how the color is a lot more concentrated, and it is kind of blending into that blending solution on the edges. And I think I want to bring this alcohol ink right to one edge, because my goal is I'm going to turn it vertically and use most, if not all of this as a background. This little bit is kind of repetitive, so I'll just go ahead and set up some music as I complete my color portion of my background. And I did make a little bit of an error down here. And I can't remember who said this, but someone once said when you do it once, it's an accident, but if you continue with it, it's on purpose. So I'm just gonna go ahead and continue with that on purpose, just to kind of carry it over a little bit more. And I'm fairly happy with the color of it. And I think I'm going to stop that there. I'll then come in with some sterling and make sure that this is really shaken up. Oop, see, I didn't put the lid on properly. That's okay. And I'll just drop that randomly across my artwork. Once I have the lid properly on this time, I'll come back in with that blower. You can certainly wear gloves when working with alcohol inks, but I'm just going to take some isopropyl alcohol and a scrap rag and just wipe it off after. And I want that to blend a little bit more. So I'll come in with a little bit more blending solution. And I really like this movement along this edge, so I'm going to try and accentuate that without wrecking what I already have. Drop there, maybe another drop right there. Oh, just excuse my furnace if you can hear it. It's still winter where I live. And I'm pretty much happy with that. So I'm just going to set that aside to dry. And I'll just come in with a little rubbing alcohol just to clean that up. So this is one background that I made a couple days ago, and I used the same colors, and you can see how even when you use the same colors, they come out quite differently each time. And the die set and stamp set that I chose to use with these card fronts are Simon Says stamp You Matter. And this is the stamp set, and this is the You Die from Simon Says stamp. This one came out a couple years ago or a year ago, somewhere in that time frame, but it's still available on the Simon Says Stamp website. And I chose this sort of shimmery white cardstock, and it's probably gonna be pretty hard to see the shimmer on camera, but I chose that to pop against the alcohol inked background. And I really want to use this Make the World a Better Place. I really love sending out cards to tell people how they've impacted my day. And I do have some that I've had printed professionally from an online printing service that have a blurb on it. But sometimes I really like to make a card, especially for whoever made my day. Then inside I'll write what exactly they did. Like sometimes if it's a cashier who went out of their way to help me, I'll include that in my little note. And I chose to emboss the Make the World a Better Place directly onto this card front in this piece of Yubo paper. And I have used my stamping tool so many times that I broke this little bottom corner, so that's why I'm choosing to go up in the top. It still works fine. Sometimes when I place it in the bottom corner, it's a little dicey, but that's why I'm placing my Yubo paper there. And And I brought in this die cut of you just so I could find the placement of where I want my Make the World a Better Place. And now that I have where I want that placed, I'll remove the U, close that over just to pick up that stamp. And you can definitely use a anti-static powder tool for this, but I just have a little container of baby powder and a paintbrush, and I find that that works just as well. So I'll go ahead and usually I have a bigger paintbrush. This is just one that I had super handy. And today I'll be using some embossing powder in white by Ranger. And now that I have placed my powder on my piece of U-boat paper, I'll come in with some Versamark ink just to ink up that stamp. So I'll go ahead and close that over and press that down. And I'll go ahead and add that embossing powder. And I just have a coffee filter here, so I'm going to use that coffee filter to tap the excess off into, and then I can very easily just place it back in the container. So I did get a little bit of embossing powder kind of where I don't want it, so I'll just come in with a paintbrush and flick that away. So I have here my heat tool, and I'll just turn it on and make sure that my heat tool is really nice and hot before I place it towards my U-boat paper, because it is plastic after all. And once my heat tool is nice and hot, I'll go and just move it pretty quickly around the U-boat paper so it's not staying in one place for a long time. So this was a die cut that I had in my stash. And I don't think that I want to pop this one up. And this is the die. This is what it looks like. It's the U from Simon Says Stamp. And I just ran my die with my shimmer paper through my die cutting machine according to the recommended sandwich for my die cut machine. So I'll come in with some liquid adhesive. This is Tombow Mono Liquid Glue. And with the pen tip, I'll just go ahead and kind of dab, make little drops along the die cut. And that die cut kind of wants to pop up, so I'll just take a acrylic block and set that aside. And you can use any die and stamp set that you want. It doesn't have to be the Simon Says Stamp You Matter. So for the second background, I'm going to die cut the shadow die of this Let's Celebrate from a pearlescent vellum. And this pearlescent vellum is from Lawn Fawn. And I'll be using Simon Says Stamp and CZ Designs Let's Celebrate die set. So I'll go ahead and I'll run this shadow die through my die cut machine. And for the word portion of the die, I really like to take the paper that I'm going to be die cutting that out of, and I'm going to add some double-sided tape to that. It's a sheet, and the ones that I have are double-sided adhesive sheets from Recollections. And before I die cut anything out, I'll just go and place my piece of paper that I'm going to be die cutting out of and just cut a rough shape, just so I'm not wasting an entire sheet. And then once I've die cut my word, if there's anything left over, I'll keep that on hand to use completely. And now that I have that cut out, I'll remove one side. I'll place my paper on top of that adhesive sheet and press it down. Again, it's not perfect, but that's okay. And then I'll go ahead and I'll die cut this with my die cut machine. The one thing that's worth noting when you're using your cardstock on top of an adhesive sheet is to run it through a couple times. I have a paper piercing tool. I think it's actually like a seam ripper, but I'm going to use that to poke out all the areas. And now that I have all of those negative spaces punched out, I can just go ahead and remove this second backing and place it onto my shadow die. And it's kind of tricky sometimes to get the proper alignment. But I try to start at one end, and then the rest kind of comes together. And again, I don't want to take away any of this background, so I'm just going to keep it as a 5x7 card. And I think I like this one as the bottom just because the color is anchored across the entire portion of the card. And to adhere my sentiment to my card front, I'll just come in with a little bit of liquid glue, and I'm placing the dots underneath the sentiment, "Let's celebrate." So it's hidden once I adhere it to my card front. I don't know if you've ever noticed before, but sometimes when working with vellum, if you get any kind of adhesives where it isn't covered, it kind of tends to ripple a bit, and it kind of makes your card look unfinished. I'll take my acrylic block from before, and right now I'm just using it as kind of a guide to make sure that it's straight. And you can definitely use a T-ruler, but I just aligned my acrylic block with the edge of my card front, and the sentiment lines up fairly straightly with the grid line on my acrylic block, so I'm happy with that. And I have some pre-made card bases here, and I'm just going to use some Tombow permanent adhesive to adhere my card fronts to my card bases. You can use liquid glue if you want. I do find though sometimes, maybe not with the Yupo paper, but with some papers that I use for card fronts and card bases, even borders, I find that the papers tend to kind of buckle, and I don't like how it impacts the overall look of my card. And I have this little bit of overhang from the card base, so I'll just use my paper trimmer just to really finish that up. And give that a finished look. It doesn't always work sometimes when it's that close to the edge, so I'll just come in with some scissors or some snips and just kind of tidy up that edge a little bit further. And that's how I've created some bold cards using minimal supplies. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day, and we'll see you next time. Bye.